Welcome to this week's edition of the Obscurity of Maximum Security with Kara Phillip. Most importantly, Mike Johnson, and most importantly, Ron Trujillo. This week, we are going to talk about stories from the chapel.
Yes, the chapel, a place of faith.
Yes.
Ron and I, that was one of our stops on our infamous guard tours. And as soon as we got up on the building, I'd say to Ron, who's that famous inmate that said, make ye a new heart and a new spirit?
I would tell the yes, it says, now you're going to see one of the most famous inmates that we had here in Joliet Correctional Center. And they see the name Ezekiel up there. And they would think about it. Says, really? I says, yeah, see Ezekiel. And then so I said, no, that's from the Bible. I said, oh, yeah, that's right. But, it was just one of those things that we would throw in because we try to keep the tour with a little levity in it.
Yeah,
Just a
little humor.
Yeah, a little humor.
So then we'd walk into the chapel, and the remains of the confessionals are to your right.
Yes.
And I would say, Ron is going to hear confessions after the tour.
Yes, and I'd say, oh, can't do it today. I forgot my scapula.
Yeah, and I'd say he's not a priest, so there's no seal of the confessional, so he's going to tell everything he knows. So about the chapel itself, it was denomination. That's it. Yeah, that's right. And so on the weekend, there'd be a Protestant service that encompassed like all the Protestant faiths. Of course, there'd be a Catholic Mass. And people would ask us, what we would say, we would ask a question. And we'd say, out of all the religions and faiths in the world, only one was not allowed in the Department of Corrections. Does anybody know what it is? So then people would be guessing. They'd be throwing out everything from Lutheran to Islam, And once in a while, somebody got it.
Yeah, very rarely, though.
And it was
voodoo.
Yeah. Voodoo was not allowed to be practiced in the chapel there, or I guess in the whole institution. I don't know.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to joke around that they would, make dolls of us and,
stick pins in them. Maybe that's why voodoo wasn't allowed. But then somebody would sometimes say Black Mass or Satanism, something.
Right.
Yeah, and I said that was allowed. Now, it was never practiced in that chapel. There was never a Black Mass in the chapel, but we had one inmate in particular who fancied himself a follower of that religion.
Yes, indeed.
And in his cell,
he had made a little altar, and he had found an animal skull on the yard. And he had created himself a little black altar, and needless to say, is contraband. And his cell got shook down, and he got wrote up about it, of course.
Yeah.
But where the hell he got that skull at?
Yeah, it was a small skull, a bird, a squirrel, or something.
All the groundhogs there then.
Yeah. It wasn't a huge.
It wasn't big like.
It was like
it was probably a bird or something.
Yeah, but the thing is, okay, so he got wrote up for contraband, but not written up for practicing that religion because it,
And people wouldn't believe you. Can they practice that?
Yeah, sure they can. Just voodoo. They didn't like voodoo for,
Isn't it because some tour, and maybe, who knows who told me, because it's a blood religion.
Oh, yeah.
Because they kill a chicken or something like that.
I always thought that it wasn't it kind of like the reverse of Catholicism, or there were like certain things that
I don't know.
We have to Google that. But
Google break. So it has nothing to do with blood. It has everything to do with contraband and masking the smells of drugs or actually having things that can cause problems in prison. It was upheld in 2007.
But anyway, other things that happen in the chapel. On my very first tour I did at the old prison, I mentioned that I got to babysit a band called the Shy Lights. They had a couple hits in the 70s, Oh Girl and Have You Seen Her? And I don't know how I got that day, but that was like the best day I had in prison. And they did 2 shows, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. I went out and got them in the morning, brought them in, you know, they got shook down and everything, of course. And they did the morning show. I took them back out. They went somewhere for lunch, come back. They did the afternoon show, took them back out. The inmates that day were good as gold. I had no problems from any inmate that day, and I got to see the Shy Lights twice. And it was just a great day. And that story is on the kiosk outside the chapel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, now where did they get that if not from me?
Well, all that stuff on those kiosks is basically most of that stuff is from you. You know, because when they opened the joint up, you know, the creation of the tours, the historical tours, as they call them now, a lot of the information, you know, they got because of Mike. And they did not know what that place was like operational. And, you know, he told them and he gave them the history of what the buildings were, what they were for. So the tours were created based upon what he brought into there. Who'd you bring in there anyway from the museum? You know, it was
there was a lot of people there on my first tour.
Yeah.
Well, Jess and the young ladies that were there at the time.
That was the creation.
And there was other people there. Some of them I didn't know, and they all had clipboards and stuff. And
so that was the creation of
you know, but because I went through and said what every building was, at least during my time there, and
no people have worked in that environment or worked in the joint.
Yeah, what happened there, and I did not call the inmate dining room a cafeteria.
Cafeteria.
I never said that.
Yeah, you know, we would always complain about this. There was no daggone cafeteria.
Yeah,
break. You know,
but also in the chapel, the inmates would every Christmas they put on a Christmas show, and there's a lot of talented guys, talented musicians. They put a band together. There was one guy did a stand-up comedy routine. You know, and then I remember the grand finale this one year. A well-known inmate that played trumpet. He was like Gabriel, and he was playing, and he walked off, and then everybody fell in behind. That was the grand finale this one year. Okay, in the chapel. And also another quick story. This it was a Sunday. And if you wanted any special guests to come in, okay, you did a detail and the warden would sign it. It'd be up in the front box. So the sarge out there on that day, that Sunday, would say, okay, there's 5, 6 people, whatever, you're allowed in, you know. Well, this memo never made it up front, this one particular day. And so the chaplain told the sarge, just let them in, they're okay. Well, that's not going to happen because it's CYA all the way. So we got another one. He had to walk it through, find the duty warden. Duty warden signed it. It was a Sunday. Brought it out there, put it on the counter in front of the sarge, and he says, you know, I'm really angry right now. And you know what happened when Jesus got angry in the synagogue or wherever it was. And the sergeant says, what are you going to do? Start throwing shit around, knocking stuff over out here? So anyway, they came in and they had a nice service at the chapel that day, but I always remembered that. And that's it on the chapel.
And that's perfect timing.
Oh.
All right.
Too late? Oh.
Thank you, everybody, for joining this episode of The Obscurity of Maximum Security with Kara Phillip. Most importantly, Mike Johnson. And today, also most importantly, Ron Trujillo. Thanks for joining us, Ron.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.